we'll begin with our first question. I'm going to do my best to divvy these out. I'm sorry. Sheriff Moore, 3-minute statement, opening statement. I'm sorry.
Well, good evening, everyone. Steve Moore. I've been serving as your sheriff, your coroner, your public administrator, and as of late, chief of airport security and your dog catcher. So I've taken on quite a few hats over the last several years. Why am I running for office? Because I still have a passion for law enforcement. This is what I do. This is where I think I contribute the most to the community. So I want to continue doing that. And with you and have been successful. We've lived up to a lot of our promises. I have one major one I'm still working on, and it seems like, as you saw in the record, maybe somebody does have a voodoo doll that's getting me when it comes to the jail. But we'll continue to work on that. We are continuing to look at alternatives, and we're continuing to be hopeful in the future that we will be able to build the facilities that we do need in order to maintain our jail and our safety in the county. Other than that, all I can tell you is I have no problem standing on my record. I've done exactly what I said I was going to do. It's pretty transparent. You've seen everything. You know who I am. You know what I've done. And if you're reasonably satisfied with that, I'll ask for the privilege of serving you again for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant Withrow.
Thanks, Matt. Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming tonight. I know it's tough to get out away from the family, but I appreciate you coming out. My name is Pat Withrow, and I'm running for sheriff here in San Joaquin County. First thing I need to correct, it's been 23 years that we've been married, and I sure appreciate her hanging with me. As they said, I've been with the department for 26 years and did canine and just about every type of street work or patrol work you can talk about, and ran down in our Lathrop area, ran the street crimes and school resource officers and all kinds of stuff down there. Right now I'm doing the alternative work program, which helps alleviate the overcrowding that we have at our jail. And I came to this decision to run for sheriff, and didn't come to it lightly. I looked around and saw a department that I care deeply about and put my life on the line, having been in 3 different shootings already, and saw a department that isn't what it used to be. We used to be very proactive and aggressive out in our community, working in partnerships with our community to solve our problems. And now we've turned into a reactive department, a department that is really good at showing up and taking cases, but I think it's too late if we're showing up taking cases we've already been victimized in. We need to get out and be proactive and protect our citizens before they're being victimized. So I decided to run because of 3 basic reasons. The first one is obviously our jail. We've gone for, ever since we opened the old jail, we've been overcrowded, and we've had 8 years of trying to get new jail cells, and we haven't got any. And Sheriff Moore did a good job getting $80 million at the start, but unfortunately we sat on that for 5 years, and then we wasted $9 million of our general fund money and didn't get any jail cells out of it. Now we just lost the last money, and we really don't have a good plan for what's to come. Well, I do. Quick, inexpensive jail beds that will keep people from being released on a daily basis. We also need to get back in our schools. We're down to 1 school resource officer, and that's because Franklin pays half their salary. So if you want to stop crime in this county, you got to stop them before they go down that path in the first place, as well as rehabilitate the ones that we have. The other thing we need to do is redeploy our officers better. We only have today about 105 officers out on the street taking calls for service. 21 of those are on special assignment. We need to get back in the game, do the basic stuff well before we start doing the specialty stuff. So, and I believe our citizens have the right to protect themselves. I believe they have the right to, if they don't have anything that precludes them from having a firearm, then they should be able to protect themselves and be part of this community and help protect neighbors like we used to. So that's why I decided to take on this challenge, and I would love your support, and I look forward to serving as your sheriff.
All right, thank you very much, both of you. So we'll start with the questions. The first one is for Sheriff Moore. In hindsight, what could you have done differently to sell the idea of more jail space to the county supervisors? Why was your solution all or nothing on the proposed 1,200 bed jail facility?
Yeah, on the AB 900 facility where we got the $80 million, it was not an all or nothing proposal. We gave the board 4 different funding or staffing proposals for that. Things that would allow us to build the facility, get us online, and either with minimal cost or to no cost, depending upon which one they chose. Those 4 plans, one was to take the inmates from the current South Jail and move them into the new facility while we refurbish the South Jail, which has not been refurbished since it was opened in 1992, which we could do and still maintain our certifications with the BSCC to be able to add to it as we then move forward in the future. The other one was to move just the honor farm inmates back to the new facility that we would build, and again, taking the staff from there, so again, there would be no additional cost and minimal cost for the additional staff we would need to run that. The third one was to move both the honor farm inmates and the staff, and the South Jail inmates and the staff to the new facility, be able to refurbish the South Jail while we were doing that, and that would be almost no cost, and we'd still gain additional bed space because of the configuration of the project at that point. And then the last one was just continuing on with the full build-out, though it would have taken 10 years to fully open the facility in the process. But when the board looked at the totality of that, they decided that they didn't have the funding for the identified $70 million in total costs. And that's staffing, that's the additional cost to all the other county departments that are part and parcel to this and make it go. So in hindsight, I don't know what else I could have done. I talked to each and every one of the board. We had tried several different times to move the project forward. The board indicated that they wanted more time to look at what was going on with the economy. They wanted to see if things would get better. And as you know, things didn't get better. They got worse. We continued on. We ended up losing $23 million out of our budget. And at that point, we had to, make some sacrifices, do some other things, but we did it intelligently. We made sure that we had appropriate staffing in patrol. We made sure we kept our people working. We kept up our services. And we were able to absorb that $23 million hit with very minimal, actually, layoffs. And that's because in 1992, I went through layoffs. I got laid off in 92. I was a lieutenant on Friday, and I was a deputy on Monday. So I know exactly what that's like. So because I saw those things coming, we were able to start making the choices ahead of time, manipulate our budget, do things appropriately so we could get ready for the things that were coming, and we were able to do that. So, like I said, I don't know what more we could have done. I think the board was much in shock after the city of Stockton had declared bankruptcy. And I think the board did not even want to run the risk or chance that the county would have to follow suit. Even though with the board and with the CAO and working with the department heads, that things stayed pretty well funded, even though most of the $54 million that they had set aside in reserves have been depleted. Thank you.
Thank you. Sergeant Withrow, you say, quote, "The sheriff is no longer proactive in fighting crime, and that you can, quote, do this better under our current allotted budget." How so?
Well, I state that because we've seen the rise in crime that we have in our community. We just went through a record year in Stockton of homicides. So yes, we can just look around and we can see what's happening in our community, and that's because when we did go through tough times, we didn't make the tough decision to keep the programs that we needed. We needed programs like the school resource officers. We needed programs like our Ags Crime Unit that went from 4 to 6 officers and a sergeant down to 1.5 officers assigned to our Ags Crime Unit, and they get to work at part-time. So what I would do different is deploy our officers differently that we have. As I said, 1/5 of our patrol staff is now on specialty patrol, whether it's a community car or assigned to Stockton PD to assist them or whatever it is. That's 1/5 of our guys not out shagging calls for service and looking for bad guys protecting our citizens. We need to do the basics before we can do everything else. We need to get back to basic, good old-fashioned patrol. And the ComCar program's a great program, and I commend the sheriff for bringing that back. I started off as a ComCar officer out in Linden. But again, all of our officers can be like ComCars. They can be part of our community. They can be involved in their beats. They can get to know their beats. They can be involved in the schools in their beats. And then as we are able to get more officers out on the street and fill our vacancies and get back to where we were, then we can spread out to the specialty unit. The first thing we have to do is make this place safe, because our economy is never going to turn around here in our county and in our county seat here in Stockton until it's safe. We all see the reputation that Stockton and San Joaquin County has throughout the world. And businesses don't want to come here. They don't want to bring industry here. They don't want to move their families here because all they hear is about the crime and gangs and drugs. Well, we need to partner with all the agencies in our county, not just 1 or 2, and we need to make sure that we are all working together to throw a net over our county, to make it a safe place where we share information and we share resources, and we work together to make sure that this place stays safe. So it's about redeploying the officers that we have, looking at the schedules that they're working right now. Our detectives are still working Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, just like they always have. And maybe we need to look at that. Maybe we can get more guys out on the street if we're out there working with our officers to be able to respond immediately when a crime happens. That will free up those officers to continue on and cover their duty. So there's a lot we can do, and I'm excited about doing it.
Thank you. Sheriff Moore, what public services were eliminated in the $23 million budget cuts? How long before they're brought back? And what will be your priority in bringing them back?
Well, the one major services that got back, we took over more of the parks, and so we had to relegate that to our patrol staff and some of our community cars when they are available to handle their calls for service. Other than that, it was trimming here and there, trimming hours at other places, doing other things. As it's been said, we had at one point 3 school resource officers, and I have now 1 that's on contract with SUSD Police. And I offer all the school districts in the county that have schools in the county a great deal. I ask them to pay for 50% of the salary. I pay for out of my budget the other 50%, along with their overtime, along with their training, and along with their equipment and vehicles. And that's a heck of a deal, especially since I'm trying to get some commitment out of them to help keep that process going. So I think that's a fair deal for the school districts. And we've worked with several of them, and we've partnered with them on grants, and we've worked at other things to be able to make that go. We're always available in the schools. Now, when you talk about the other losses, we were able to stretch our community car numbers by deploying just 1 officer in certain communities based on crime analysis. But we should have deployed more, and we still need to have deployed more, and we will in the future as we move forward and things get better and we are able to retain the additional staff. But most of the cuts, came in the area of equipment and other things that we could afford to put off for periods in time, things that we could do better. We took our IT computers. Instead of replacing them every 4 years, we moved them to 5 and 6 years. And that also went for the servers and the other parts of our process to be able to make the money go further, to extend it, and to be able to make sure that we had all the tools to be able to support our staff in the street.
Thank you. Sergeant Withrow. The county is a creature of the state. Much of what happens is determined in Sacramento. How are you equipped to contend for the best interests of the county in those circles of state-level officials?
Well, I've dealt with those officials for many years, of being part of our DSA board and now president of our Deputy Sergeants Association. I already have the support of several of those officials up there. They have the endorsement of Senator Kathleen Galgiani and Joan Buchanan and Assemblywoman. And so I'm used to being up there working with them and fighting for the rights of our officers and working with CORAC, who I have the endorsement with, which is a police organization that has 90,000 members throughout our state. And so I'm up there and I'm fighting for the rights of our officers on a regular basis with our associations. So I'll just continue those relationships that I've already built and build more and work across the aisle, not unlike this campaign has become. It's been a very amazing campaign that has people working together that normally don't work together because we're all pulling for the same direction here. So we have people from both sides of the aisle or right down the middle of the aisle that are standing with us and saying, it's time for a change. It's been 8 years, and even the president only gets 8 years. And so maybe we get some new set of eyes on this. So I look forward to working with Sacramento as well as our federal government to make sure we get funding that we need.
Okay, thank you. Sheriff Moore. Some say that there have been personnel transfers that may have cost taxpayers more money, particularly those of experienced officers who were transferred to positions requiring less expertise, but who still got paid the same. I would like to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay. None of that has occurred. We have rotated staff through. One of the things that we had to do when the budget got bad was in order to save some of the jobs and some of the deputy sheriff's positions, we started transferring people to court services. Now, in the past, we had left several of those allocations empty in order to pay for part-time staff. So instead of keeping the part-time staff, I chose to keep the full-time staff. So we transferred people into those positions. Now, that was a way to save their jobs and to be able to support courts. We have continued to transfer people from patrol to courts and other areas to courts and then back out again. No one's going to courts and staying there as far as being sentenced there for long periods of time. They're doing a year to 18 months and are gaining valuable experience in the courts. And if you'll recall, when you say potentially a lesser experience or lesser qualified job, I'll disagree with that from the very beginning. I mean, they're deputy sheriffs. They work in the courts. They provide security for the courts. They provide security for you when you go to court. You know, unfortunately, the courthouse we have is old and antiquated. As you know, they've started working on building a new one. So we're still today walking inmates across the hall through the citizens who are going there to appear in court and stuff. Now, if you don't talk about that as a potential safety hazard, I don't know what is. But we have to do that, unfortunately. We do everything we can. So putting quality people in the courts, getting that experience, moves them around, gives them a better feel for their career moves in the future. So it works very well. And as long as we're continuing to move people, and we just announced another transfer list, we've had people transferring out. In fact, they just started the mini academy in patrol again, getting re-relegated, going back to patrol. We sent some new ones down to court services who hadn't been there. I met with the court captain this morning, and he said, it was nice to see a great bunch of guys, smiling faces, and wanting to go to work. So I think we're doing well with that.
Thank you. Sergeant Withrow. Regardless of the nature of any new facility, the question of staffing remains. Please comment on how you would address the affordability of hiring and maintaining staffing levels that would meet the needs generated by your proposal.
Absolutely, yeah. Anytime we start adding beds, whether they're bunk beds in the existing jail or modular facilities out at our honor farm, we start increasing inmates that we're holding in custody so that they don't victimize our citizens, we're going to have to hire more staff. Now, we have about 10 to 12, I believe the sheriff's numbers were, of open positions on the correctional side that I heard from the undersheriff just recently. So we have those positions that are open that we're working to fill right now. We have several people assigned to, and have had several people assigned to planning new jails that we can actually get back in the game and put them back out there protecting inmates again as soon as we stop planning for new jails. So we have to have some bodies around, but of course it's going to take more. For every 64 inmates that we put in there, we need one officer to watch them, one correctional officer to watch them. And so we have some funding left over from the original $80 million facility. The retired CAO was with me recently, Manuel Lopez, and stated about $17 million of that is still left waiting there, the matching funds that they had before. So that's money that we can use directly to pay for new correctional staff. Now, each correctional officer costs us about $115,000 a year with roll-ups and insurance and all that type of stuff. So it's fairly pricey, but you really can't put a price on our safety. You can't put a price on the effect that this is having on our community. The more we are victimized, the more money we lose in our community. So yes, it will cost a little more in staffing, but we need to start holding more inmates and holding them accountable for victimizing our citizens. And I think you can see, as by the city of Stockton, they just voted to have another half-cent sales tax because they wanted more officers. They wanted to be safe. So I'm not advocating at all for any type of sales tax at all. We don't need that, but I think people are willing to pay for their safety and their family's safety, and we need to use their money properly that we have already, but it's worth it for the environment that it will change in our city and the new revenue that it will bring in because we will be safer. So to start off with, and for several years, we can use the existing funding that's there.
Thank you. Excuse me, Sheriff Moore, what are some examples of a good cause in qualifying for a concealable handgun permit?
Today, good cause can be just the request for personal protection outside the home pursuant to the Ninth Circuit Court's opinion. And we have rewritten all of our policies and our guidelines to fit the Ninth Circuit's opinion. And we are issuing permits based on that.
Thank you. So follow up then for Sergeant Withrow. What are your thoughts on concealed weapons? Will you be less or more apt to allow them as compared to this administration?
Well, I think clearly I'll be more apt to do that. For the past 7 years, you've had to prove good cause. As a matter of fact, still on our website, when you click on the new link that we have, it still shows that you have a good cause form that you have to fill out. So I have said all along that good cause, unfortunately, is living in San Joaquin County. We have a lot of crime, and we have a lot of people who are willing to step up and protect their neighbor. And I think as long as they're of good moral character and don't have any psychological problems, then God bless them for wanting to step up and protect my family. It could be my family in the store, or your family at a restaurant that needs protection. And we have a lot of good people in this county, and we need to get back to neighbors protecting neighbors. So I have said it all along. I've never wavered on this. We've gone 7 years now. Mr. Moore ran his campaign on concealed weapons permit, and apparently he had a change of heart while serving. But now this Ninth Circuit Court has said, look, you can't keep people from having their firearms if you're just basing it on good cause. So I will continue with this philosophy, and I think we'll go from the 500 few CCWs that we have and be more like our surrounding counties of Sacramento and Stanislaus that have up over 3,000 CCWs. So I foresee a much safer community for us.
Thank you. Just as a side note, if I'm looking at these people in the audience correctly, you might want to duplicate some of those applications for concealed weapons. Someone might be getting some calls on that. Thank you. Sheriff Moore, after our recent loss of the $33 million in state funds to build a jail, county officials said, quote, there will be other options to come. What are those options?
Well, after we were notified of the appeal, I did make a letter and sent it to the board where we indicated that, first of all, there will potentially be additional funding options from the state. The governor has already announced he was going to put $500 million into his budget for a round 2 of SB 1022, which would then also be parsed out pursuant to the BSCC. On top of that, there's AB 2356, which was introduced by Assemblymember Burrell, and that calls for $1.2 billion in funding for adult local jail facilities to be constructed. And those numbers, that $1.2 billion, covers the remainder of the unfunded counties that did not qualify for SB 1022 funding in this round. So between those two, I believe that there will be some additional funding. Now, with San Joaquin County's proposal already been funded and at the top in the past, we should be able to qualify very readily for the additional funds necessary to build an additional facility without any trouble at all in the future. Plus, we'll continue to work on our proposals. Additionally, I've indicated to the board that we've been put forth a proposal that we're working currently with the Board of State Community Corrections to double bunk certain portions of the jail. And those are being done with the idea that we can do this and do the double bunking, gain about 200 beds, and not have to have any additional staffing. Because we've been double bunking in areas where the staffing already exists in the appropriate ratio. Now, when you talk about ratio of 1 to 64, that is true. It's one inmate or one officer to 64 inmates. But in order to cover that inmate around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, it takes 4.6 correctional officers to do that. So you're 120,000 or 115,000, multiply that by 4.6, and that gets you 164-man unit staff. As you add additionals, you have to do the others. Now, at the mid-year budget report, the county administrator, Monica Nino, indicated to the board that she is looking at a $13 to $15 million shortfall in the budget for next year. So if you're going to take any of the monies that were left over, and there is about $17 million, as Sergeant Withrow's indicated, that's one-time money. It's there, and once it's spent, it's gone. Okay? So staffing, once it runs out of that, there's no money for them. What are we going to do? Lay them off or release prisoners? We don't want to do that either. So we want to plan appropriately so that we can put people in facilities, keep them there, and maintain them while we move forward, looking for the additional relief coming from the state. Now, I'm very optimistic that we will be able to do that. We're also looking at a pre-trial risk assessment that is being vetted currently by probation and should be coming online shortly. That will give us some additional keys because we can utilize that same study or process not only for the pretrial, we can use it for our own inmates during classification, and Sergeant Withrow can use it at alternative work program. So we can add additional staffing that way.
Follow-up question on the double bunking. Some here might think that that's something new that will happen. Isn't that going on right now? Question one, and then also, does that put officers, correctional officers, at a higher risk by double bunking?
No, we currently do some double bunking now, especially in our intakes units, but unfortunately, pursuant to the court cap, we can only have double bunk or floor sleepers for 24 hours. So after that, they end up moving out or being either properly assigned to a bed, or others are being released on that process. We are not going to do anything that is going to be inherently unsafe. We are not going to do anything that violates any of the rules or regulations as set forth by the BSCC or Title 15 or Title 24.
Thank you. Sergeant Withrow, were there any programs that were cut during this last, I'm going to call it a recession, $23 million worth of cuts? Were there any programs cut that were so ineffective that there's really no need to bring them back? If so, which ones?
Wow. Well, we had a couple programs cut out of our jail that were there for inmates for rehabilitation. We had our upholstery shop that used female inmates to learn a trade there, and many of them were able to get jobs when they got out. And then we had our auto body shop that helped inmates learn the skill of obviously fixing cars, and if you've ever seen officers drive, they have a lot of work. But you know, to measure whether they didn't help us or not is difficult to do. I would venture to say that they helped us a lot. First of all, the upholstery shop was just amazing, not just for our department, but for the entire county. You know, the other county agencies saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, by bringing their stuff to us. Inmates were cleaning them. They were reupholstering them. And so instead of the other agencies having to go out and buy new furniture, and many of us know the cost of furniture, much less commercial grade furniture for an office, the other departments were able to save that money. So we need to look long term before we cut these programs, because it really affects everybody in our area. And it was the same with our auto body shop. Many people brought their stuff there to get fixed at a better rate, you know, because we had inmate workforce. So you know, they were costly to us. They were covered by the inmate welfare fund, therefore it didn't cost us any general fund dollars. That's money that the inmates actually bring in by buying commissary or things like that. So it wasn't general fund dollars. But that budget, that inmate welfare fund got heavily depleted. But again, I think the benefit to the community outweighed the deficit. And sometimes you need to look at the bigger picture than just individual little programs.
So as a follow-up question then, if you were elected sheriff, would you bring those vocational programs back at the expense of layoffs? Or in your mind, are the officer protection would be a priority to those vocational programs? Yeah,
officer protection is obviously the top priority to me. That's why I have the correctional officer's endorsement just as of late. So no, we would never put officer safety at risk by programming, but programming is important. So we need to bring in programs that are cost effective. We need to partner with possibly our unions here locally to bring in apprenticeship programs that don't cost us a lot of money or don't cost us any money to teach these inmates trades, because we cannot send them back out the way they came in. If I arrest somebody for breaking into your car, he comes in, he gets court capped early after a few weeks or a few days, he has nothing else to do but go back and break into your car again. We need to stop this cycle. We need to hold them for their sentences so that the DAs can give them proper sentences, and we need the vetting for that to be able to house them. And then once we have them, we need to fix them. We can't put them back out. There are great programs out there. There's a program out of San Francisco called 5 Keys, and that's where they actually have a charter school that doesn't cost us a dime inside our jail, and instead of coming out with a GED, they come out with a high school diploma. So there's so many other trades we can fix them with. One of the new programs that was going to be with the jail that we lost was a forklift training type program, and I thought that was a great idea. But we need more. We can teach them, framing, electrical, roofing, plumbing, whatever we need. And while we're teaching them that, guess what? We can fix our facility. we can actually have them work there and start fixing the facility. So they're learning a trade, they're coming back out, they don't have to go back out and reoffend, and it's a win-win all the way around.
Thank you. Here's a question for both, and we'll begin with Sheriff Moore. Because seniors are considered, quote, low-hanging fruit for criminals, how do you propose keeping seniors safe while implementing Prop 109 releases? In other words, supposing that whoever brought this question forward, is there any special thing that you can think of right now with regard to seniors as opposed to the population?
Well, one of the ways is we recruit them into our STARS program, which is the Sheriff's Team of Active Retired Seniors, to help them becoming involved with the office, make them more aware of their surroundings and things that are going on. We're also trying to work directly with the district attorney's office to make sure they're not continuing to be victims of financial crimes and elder abuse. And we're very good and detectives about prosecuting those crimes. On top of that, we want to make sure that we, as we move forward, and you talk about inmates and you talk about programs and you talk about training, the upholstery shop and the auto body shop were losing money terribly. They were draining and depleting to the point where it was gonna go broke, okay, which is not appropriate. On top of that, we didn't just say, okay, today we're gonna cut it. We ended up going through my management services department and we developed a full-blown business plan for both, trying desperately to get them to become revenue neutral. Not necessarily make a profit, but at least break even. And even with that, it continued. And we had this for several years, and we tried several different times and places to do that. On top of that, there are only so many upholstery jobs available. There are only so many body and fender jobs. And today, if you go to a body fender shop, they don't repair them like they used to. They don't, drill the holes, pull the dents out, put the Bondo on. They just slap on your parts. So that's pretty much all the skill that is required on those things. We have a brand new program that we're working now. It's called CTEC. Works very well. And it gives them an opportunity to affiliate with a national organization to be able to look for jobs. And what they're doing is they're learning how to splice cable, both fiber optic, they're using punch block, they're doing a thing, which is a skill that they can actually use and they can actually gain a great job, make a prevailing wage and do that. Now, there are other programs out there. We've explored some with the Carpenters Union. We're going to continue to look at those things. We also have GED and high school diploma programs on board that are at no cost through the Manteca Unified School District and the County Office of Education. So we're doing those things with those inmates. On top of that, we're looking at other alternatives to try to do things that will make them available for hire. We're also looking at a truck driving potential. Talked to a representative from the Truck Drivers Association, and they're indicating there's a possibility that they would love to be able to do that. I just got to figure out how to get a simulator or training on board without them driving off the compound with the 18-wheeler. But we'll solve that as we go, because those are good paying jobs that they can do, that they can actually earn a living wage. Now, unfortunately, when you talk about inmates doing work, inmates can do work in the facility itself, like washing clothes or manning laundry or working in other areas. But if they're going to do work on the facility itself, the county has a duty to make sure that the employees are paid appropriately, plant engineering employees, the others, and then there's a prevailing wage requirement. So I don't think that we're going to get in the position of having inmates do work on facilities or other areas that may or may not meet codes, may or may not meet the process, and may or may not become in conflict with some of the current MOUs.
Thank you. Same question, Sergeant Withrow, regarding seniors.
That's right, it was about seniors. The seniors are victimized on a regular basis around here. Again, unfortunately, they are an easy prey for a criminal that we have running loose on our street. So it comes down to educating and caring about our neighbor again. We need to educate the seniors on protecting themselves. Actually, I'm in a movie right now that was made several years back and is showing on our public television, public access TV right now, that educates seniors about keeping from being victimized and it talks about senior abuse and financial abuse for seniors. So we go out and we reach out to these communities and it's nice to have the stars out assisting us, but we can go a little bit further with them. We should be able to pick up the phone and instead of just having a vacation check where they come and check on your house while you're gone, maybe we have them come out and check on your elderly parent once or twice or 3 times a week, so they have that personal contact and we're checking with them. So we need to start thinking out of the box more and using more of the skills that we have. We need to start a program because we used to have a lot of problems with seniors that have dementia and they go missing, and we spend many man hours looking for people that are missing. Well, wouldn't it be nice if we had a program where we can supply the tracking device that we can keep on them, and it's a low cost, or it doesn't cost the family anything. We can get support from the community for that, so that when the senior walks away from the house, that now we're able to track them and follow them where they're at. So there's many things we can do to protect our aging population. We're getting there fast. You're a little faster than me with that gray hair.
Yes, I'm a senior.
But you know, they're absolutely right. Whoever asked the question is, you're right. We need to reach out, and it's about becoming a community again. It's about, you know, we've got so many people who are traveling to their jobs and having to work all the time, when we need to start taking care of each other and get back to knowing your neighbors and knowing what looks right and what's not right, and reaching out to help people. So I think that we at the sheriff's office, instead of being the guys who are always being the bad guys and arresting people, that's part of that partnership, where you guys getting out of your cars and knowing their community and getting involved. So I think we can do a lot more.
All right, thank you. Now, I just want to make a quick note. These questions, we're hoping that they're not too difficult, or obviously they're not too difficult, they've been answered well, but we wanted to stay on point as a taxpayer association. We didn't want it to become such a campaign for either side. That's kind of our role as the SJTA. There's a couple of questions here that I feel that we have, by the way, we have called out 3 or 4 questions that we felt as a board that were disrespectful. We're not going to ask those, but some of these tough questions. Here's one. Sheriff Moore. This comes in for an individual that read a book that was written several years ago. It was a history of the Sheriff Department. He says from 1850 to 2003, every administration until Baxter Dunn wanted a bigger jail, and many got jail expansions. Dunn wanted classrooms and vocational programs, and the recidivism rate started to fall. It appears that you have systematically disassembled classes and programs for vocational training that were started by your predecessors, and the rate in San Joaquin County is the highest in the state. Why are you suggesting that we add these programs in your next administration after dismantling them in your previous administration?
Okay, we didn't dismantle them from just trying to get rid of the program. We looked at the program, and was the return on the investment appropriate? Could we get a better bang for our buck through the inmate welfare fund to provide better services to the inmate, therefore making them more viable in the future? And that's what we're doing now. That's why we're working with the CTEC program. We have several others we want to become online, and the project we were trying to build was geared towards having program space to be able to do those additional programs. So we do see that that is a need. We are going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to work with every possibility to bring any kind of program that makes good sense, that is cost effective, that will provide a living wage for these people when they leave the facility. So we've been working very closely and very hard. Now, I've been successful. Like I said, I got $80 million the first time around to build 1,280 beds. And unfortunately, the recession, as you put it, dropped that out from under, and we weren't able to continue with it. So we had to put it off. And then finally, when we did, the board decided otherwise. So then we turned around and we went after SB 1022 funding, and we were again successful at getting that. However, because of a technical error and then because of an appeal, Stanislaus County won their appeal and vaulted them into second place, which pushed us out to the bottom. Now, some of those things are just kind of like saying, well, what happened and why? I've done all I can do, and I will continue to do that. We should be able to move forward with it, and I think we'll be successful in the future.
Thank you. Sergeant Withrow, here's a very simple question that comes in. Why are the gates left open at the honor farm?
That's a very good question. I guess because the simple answer is because we've always done it that way. We have the gate standing open, still standing open right now. It'll close at night, which is good. You know, the calling it an honor farm anymore is a misnomer. You know, I said it before. You know, the days of Otis are gone, and we don't have Otis the inmate anymore. We have the baddest of the bad staying in our jail. That's all we can afford to keep there. That's all we have the beds for. And we need to take that honor farm and make it into a jail. Okay, we need to double that fence line all the way around, not just around one building. We need to sallyport both of those gates on either end. Both ends of the gates are open, by the way, so they can just go right on through. So by sallyporting, you have two gates. One opens, car drives in, closes, the other one opens. And that's how it works every place else. So we need to catch up, you know. It's been 7 years. The sheriff's own second plan for his $33 million facility quoted that they had the highest escapes they've ever had in the last 18 months. And yet the gate stayed open. And yet we've done nothing to secure that place. You know, the officers are doing everything they can. They're working hard. In the past 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, we've had 3 more escape. 2 of them went over the roof. The reason they went over the roof? Because the barbed wire's on backwards. We put the razor wire on backwards. We knew this because when the basketball went on the roof, they'd climb up and get it and climb back down. So we need to fix little things like that. Unless you get out and you speak to your people, and I think it speaks to the fact that the correctional officers have come out and said, hey, maybe it's time for a new set of eyes. You need to know these things that are going on at your honor farm. And we can't stand by and wait. We can't wait another 4 or 5 years for a new facility. We have to take what we've got to do it with the money that we've got, and we can't have excuses because of tough times or whatever it is. No, you find a way to get it done to protect your people, whatever it takes. And the first thing you got to do is make a secure facility and lock that place down.
Thank you. Sheriff Moore, what kind of influence on the court, if any, does the sheriff have when it comes to deciding who will be released under the court cap?
Under the court cap, it is sponsored by the Superior Court, run by the Superior Court. The Superior Court judge runs it. And we provide information to the judge, and the judge then goes through that information based on our numbers, based on our classifications, based on the overall situation that he finds himself on, the philosophy that he wants to do, and then he makes a determination to release it. As far as influence, if there are specific needs that we have, we discuss it with the court, we discuss it with the judge, and then the judge makes the final decision. One of those is that currently the judge is not releasing any inmate that's sentenced under 1170H, which is one of the new sections under AB 109, as he believes they all should do their entire time, whether it's split sentences or not. So therefore, that is one of his philosophies, and that's the numbers he's keeping in place. So we do provide information, we do speak to the judge, but the judge is the final authority on it.
So when you're talking about a judge, kind of a follow-up question is, would this be the presiding judge?
No, sir. This currently is Judge Giuliani.
Okay. Is it possible, I'm just trying for another question here.
Sure.
Is it possible to partner with the DA's office and working with your recommendation, or is that done at all when you go to the judge?
It is done regularly, and the DA's office has representatives at the monthly meetings also.
Thank you. Sergeant Withrow, Sheriff Moore went through what appears to be the worst of the recession and $23 million in cuts without any layoffs. Yet you enjoy the endorsement and significant financial backing from the unions. What would you say to those who are concerned about the possibility that you could be in the pocket of the unions?
Well, I would hope to put their fears at ease. First of all, we didn't go through the recession without any layoffs, and I'm sure the sheriff will agree with me. We had to lay off, I think it was 33 correctional officers. He's done an excellent job of trying to bring them back as he can, and we got them all back.
Yes, we did.
Got them all back now, the ones that hadn't gotten new jobs. So we did have to go through layoffs. You know, that's the problem. Is I probably have a lot of the union support because we cut all at the bottom. We cut all the worker bees down everybody that did the work, the people that we needed, the correctional staff to hold these people in custody. The reason we can't fill the beds that we have now is because we don't have enough staff to watch them. So they saw what happened. Instead of, when the sheriff came in, he brought back the undersheriff position, which I'm sure makes good money, and I'm glad he does. John's a nice guy, but you know, we have an undersheriff, 2 assistant sheriffs, 5 or 6 captains. I mean, we got a lot of chiefs, but where did we cut? We cut down the Indians that were out protecting our people and our families and holding these guys in custody. We have to make different choices when it comes time for these type of cuts, and we need to cut at the top instead of the bottom. And whether I'm in the pockets of the unions or not, I don't see that at all. I'm a union guy myself, and I'm proud of it. You know, I've been part of our Deputy Sheriff's Association, as is the sheriff, and I'm president, as I said, of our sergeant's union. And but all the unions are asking for is a seat at the table, for somebody to listen to them, to hear their side of it. They know we're not going to agree all the time. You can't agree all the time. But we want to make sure we're doing what's best for our community, best for our people, and what's safe for our people. And I think a perfect example is as soon as we started talking about double bunking, nobody came to our correctional officers and said, hey, what do you think of it? Well, I can tell you what you think of it because I've been asking them. They're scared to death. They say it's not if somebody's going to get killed, it's going to be when somebody gets killed. Now, that's their wording, not mine. You know why? Because they work in there. They work there 24/7. And I asked them if this was feasible. And it's not. It's what has got us into this place and this problem in the first place. What we need are quick, inexpensive beds to house these people to quit releasing them. So back to your union question, I'm not in the pockets of the union. I'm proud to have their support. I just think they think it's time for a change. They want some new eyes on this, and it's been 8 years, and they're not seeing the results that they were looking for.
All right, so as a follow-up question to that then, the county is anticipating $13 to $15 million deficit in next year's budget. So is it your opinion that some of the top management positions should be eliminated?
Well, I guess that depends what of that $13 to $15 million comes our way. I have the endorsement of one of the Board of Supervisors so far, and you know, it seems to me that their priority right now, and they've showed it recently in a lot of their votes, like voting down the $80 million facility that would have bankrupted our county, their priority, and they know it, is public safety right now. Now, however much of that comes our way, we'll look at and see where we can cut to save money. But what happened last time where the unions all got together and helped save money, it was the DSA that kept from having any deputies laid off, not our sheriff. It was the DSA that gave up their raises to save positions. So I'm sure we can work together, especially since I have the union support. I have the correctional officers, I have the deputy sheriff's officer, and I have a SEIU, which is the civilian staff that works at our jail. All of them are saying it's time for some new eyes. It's time. It's not because the sheriff's a bad man and he's worked hard at this, and we thank him for his work, and it's been a tough job. We went through a lot of cuts, and he worked very hard at it. But they're just saying sometimes you look at a problem and you keep saying the same answer. Well, I've got some different answers. So I will look around, and whatever comes our way, we'll find a way to deal with it. But public safety and officer safety will always come first.
All right, thank you. So it's just kind of a parallel question then to Sheriff Moore. So the county is anticipating this $13 to $15 million deficit in next year's budget. So do you know how much of this will be attributed to the sheriff's office and what public safety issues might be impacted just with this anticipated cut alone?
Okay, currently, I do not know exactly what percentages or what that would be. I do know that we are, as far as the sheriff's office is concerned, we're on budget. And we've been on budget or below budget since I've been sheriff, even with the cuts. We've made our commitment to you, the taxpayers, with the money and the decisions that were made. Now, I've continued to work with it. I think we can continue to do whatever we need to do. As long as we stay on budget, as long as we perform appropriately, and where we can do other things to reduce costs that we can, I think we can help make up the deficit. Or the other option is always there's rollover from the year's budget. That and how much that will be coming up, we don't know yet. Last year it was to the tune of about $8.5 million in rollover money, which may help make up the deficit going into next year. But we won't know that until we've gone through the formal budget process, which doesn't happen until latter part of June. And so that's being looked at.
Okay, sorry. Sergeant Withrow, the competitive application process for the $13 million that we just lost by the state ranked counties by the quality of their projects. And they were also given a preference for being ready to go with the project. Do you feel that our chances of getting this state money would have been better had the plan been about modular housing instead of a new jail facility?
Wow, that's a tough one to answer. I think I would think that if we'd gone the modular way, which was suggested in the first $80 million grant that we got, or AB 109 that we got, the $80 million we got, that part of that was he was supposed to look at the modular question and never really looked at it. We just looked at the big facility. So, you know, we could have been ready. We could have been up and running with this and getting housing for people right now. So I think it's a great alternative. I think it's inexpensive, it's quick, and I think the state would see it that way also. So I would certainly hope they would.
All right, thank you. Sheriff Moore, what have you done at the state level to address the burden of AB 109? And by that question, I assume that the person is wanting some specifics on maybe who you've talked to and whose meetings have been about.
Okay. I've met on several occasions with the governor. I've met with legislators, met with our ledge team, which is part of the California State Sheriff's Association. I'm currently an officer in that association. I'm serving as their sergeant at arms, and I should be moving up into the next phase, which would be treasurer, coming after the meeting in April. We will continue to do that. We have met with legislators. We've looked at different pieces of legislation. We have worked very closely with them in trying to get additional monies passed available for us or to make changes to the laws. We've looked at trying to move anybody sentenced more than 3 years over to state prison instead of having to stay more than 3 years in local jail facilities. We've looked at the possibility of moving people to other areas outside the county if they have jail space available and other options. But we've been very active and moved a lot of different things and looking to try to maximize whatever space is available out there to be able to do that. But it not only is that, but we've been working here with the Community Corrections Partnership to be able to work with them and also addressing issues that they can bring through probation, through the Cal Chiefs, and through the others that are represented on the CCP. So I have a very good working relationship with every member of that group. We are moving forward and trying to solve the problems and make sure that we deliver the services that are required under AB 109.
Okay, as a follow-up question, I heard you mention something about moving inmates onto the state system, prison system.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything to be said for you working, let's say, with the DA's office to get a plea bargain on some of these people, to get them off the county dime and back onto the state rolls?
Well, we work regularly with the district attorney's office on prosecutions and cases and trying to move these forward. But the actual sentencing is up to the judge. So whatever case is put forward, the judge will then decide what cases go. Currently, there has been a trend that has been sitting not only in San Joaquin County, but it's been statewide, that more people are being sent to state prison again on the second strike. So that will also cut down our numbers locally here. So I do believe that's already taking place, as you can see by the numbers that are being put forth in the latest study that came out.
Okay, thank you. Sergeant Withrow, when we are speaking about line staff positions, how many hours of overtime per month does it take to warrant hiring one new officer so that we can get back to only regular hours that are shared by everyone?
So that we can get back to,
Well, let me read this again. It's, when we are speaking about line staff positions, how many hours of overtime per month does it take to warrant hiring one new officer, so we can get back to only regular hours that are shared by everyone? I suppose right now, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of overtime happening out there now.
that's correct.
All right, so the overtime is something that sometimes you have these correctional officers that are back-to-back one shift, and then they have to stay over for several hours, that kind of thing. In your mind, wouldn't it be better if we could reduce the overtime and put that money toward hiring new officers and everyone goes back to a regular schedule instead of so much overtime? I suppose that's...
It would seem that way. Obviously, you would think because you're paying somebody overtime that it would save you money if you weren't doing that, and it seems that way. But a lot of times, overtime dollars aren't as expensive as the full roll-up dollars of paying the benefits and everything like that. The big problem with it is the officer safety issue side of it. We are absolutely taxing our correctional officers to the max. They're so shorthanded that they are on mandatory overtime on a regular basis. And when you're working a 12-hour shift, and then it turns into an 18-hour shift, day after day after day, and now you up the inmate population to the sophistication as these state-level inmates, we see what's already starting to happen, and it's starting to be where the inmates are clicking up just as if they're in state prison, and it's becoming very dangerous for our officers. So our officers, it's just like a truck driver, you know, if he's on the road too long and is tired, it becomes less and less safe for him, obviously, and it's the same thing with our officers. So it's more of an officer safety issue than the financial side. But to solve the problem, we have to hire more correctional officers so we can make sure we have the staffing we need, so we don't have the mandatory overtime, and we can hold the. We're basically a customer service business, you know, and if you have good, happy employees, you get a really good work product out of them. So yeah, definitely. I mean, getting it back, if I understand the correction properly, getting it back to where we don't have the mandatory overtime will be huge for morale. I mean, it would just be great. It's great on their families. I mean, it's the 12-hour shift is really hard on the family. I know my wife; she works 12 hours at the hospital, and it's tough. You get up, you go to work, and you come home, and you go to bed. So, but the COs like the 12-hour shift. The problem is that it changed, mandated upon them, that it went from they were just getting straight pay to an 8-hour shift, and then so this was done as they thought it was going to be a cost savings. Ended up that they had the wrong facts and figures from several years back, and ended up even costing us more to go to that shift. So we went from like 1.3 million to 1.7 million, and you know, they like the 12-hour shift, but we want to make sure that we don't keep working overtime over and over again.
All right.